Hey guys, and welcome back to Rosie Wrestling. I'm Massa.
And I'm Safe.
And today we have our Rosie Rewind. It's new name, new branding. And we're going to be reviewing the WrestleMania 18 pay-per-view. And the reason we chose this one is because it is not talked about as one of the best. It's in between two of the best WrestleManias. And, you know, it just feels like it's forgotten, except there's that one match that we'll talk about in a second. But we're just going to get started.
Yeah, it's definitely not the worst WrestleMania, but it's definitely not the best one. It's kind of middle of the road. And I felt like it would be pretty cool to just review a WrestleMania that isn't talked about, like 17 or 19 or 10 or something like that.
Right. So let's get started. The first thing that we have is a performance by Saliva. And it was just, you know, a regular musical performance. And this is taking place in Toronto, Canada, which I'm totally down with international WrestleManias. But the first match we have is William Regal as not Universal, as Intercontinental Champion against RVD. What did you think about this match?
I thought this was a short match, and it's so weird to see how far the Intercontinental Championship has come. You know, going into this week's WrestleMania, we have Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, and The Miz, and that's like one of the most hyped matches for WrestleMania, at least in my opinion. But here, RVD Regal, it just was a short match, and even though I love these two guys, they didn't really get enough time to really show off what they're capable of. And RVD ends up going over and winning the IC title. But
also, I did enjoy the technical style of William Regal versus the acrobatic style of RVD. I feel like that's a cool dynamic that we don't usually get to see.
One also side note, the Attitude Era was fantastic. This is a little bit post-Attitude Era, but the one big criticism is the IC title and the mid-card titles weren't really treated that well. There was a lot of flip-flopping of the belts, but I think during this time, the IC title started going through a renaissance. We had RVD win it here, and then over the next few years, you'd see guys like Shelton Benjamin and Chris Jericho, Christian, Randy Orton hold the title and really make that title important again. So I feel like it started around this time. I just wanted to mention that.
So next we have the match between Diamond Dallas Page making his WrestleMania debut as European champion against Christian, which Christian's kind of his like protege at this point, you know, with his like anger management,
like life coach or something. This is around the time that Christian was like throwing his temper tantrums and stuff like that. But out of all the different Christians we've seen, this is my least favorite Christian. I mean, obviously he was going through a bit of a transitional phase. He was with Edge, you know, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, my personal favorite tag team. And then after this, he was Captain Charisma around 2004. But like this little 2-year period, he was, you know, doing the Un-American shtick. And he was doing this whole thing. And this is definitely my least favorite of the different gimmicks. But what did you think of this match overall?
I thought that it was not a bad match. It definitely didn't... I was excited for it because I love Diamond Dallas Page and Christian. Some of my favorites. And we did see in the end the whole temper tantrum thing. Like, Diamond Dallas Page did actually go over on this one. And what did you think about that ending?
I thought it was okay. Overall, I thought this was a better match than the previous one. But another short match, like these mid-card titles weren't really treated great back then, around this time. More when the Ruthless Aggression era really started, that's when they treated the mid-card titles a lot better. But these are two underappreciated workers, and it's cool to see them in this capacity. Moving on to the Hardcore Championship match, and it's Goldust versus Maven. Now, this is something we saw kind of throughout the night. This was back in the Hardcore title era, where it was a 24/7 rule. And here, Goldust Maven happens, but, you know, Crash Holly actually gets involved.
Like, why not?
We see this throughout the night, you know, people winning the Cruiserweight title. We see the Hardcore title. We see Molly Holly, the Hurricane, Christian. And actually Maven ends up winning it at the end of the night.
Here we have also Spike Dudley, who's the one who actually wins this one.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But, you know, it just, whatever. It was kind of...
It was whatever. My favorite part was Goldust pulling out the golden shovel. I'm not sure if he stole that from Triple H's garage or something like that, because you know Triple H owns a golden shovel from all the people he's buried.
Also, oh my god, I can't believe you went there. But also the whole like Al Snow just like driving into like the boxes, like why not? I think that's fun. I think, you know, I'm okay with the lighthearted stuff and like not everything way too serious. But we have the next match, which is
even before that though, another musical performance. And at this point, I'm totally over the musical performances. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of them. Period. At the Super Bowl, it's kind of fun, but in this capacity, I don't enjoy them at all.
So now we have Kurt Angle versus Kane. What did you think about this match? These are two very different performers, but very talented performers.
Yeah, I thought, Kane at this point was, much more athletic than he is now. He even pulled out an enziguri in this match, which was pretty cool. And this was actually a good match, surprisingly. Not surprisingly, but when you just look at these two guys, maybe they don't mesh well together. Two very different styles. But I thought it was a pretty good match. Not a classic by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a good match at the end, and I did thoroughly enjoy it. We had Kurt Angle getting the fluky win. It was like a roll-up win.
Right, and he also used the ropes for leverage.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought the ending was kind of flat.
Yeah, I know. It was
didn't really
look weird.
Like a roll-up, and it looked like Kane got his shoulder up, too.
Right.
So the ending, I do have to criticize the ending, but overall, I actually thought it was a good match.
Next, we have The Undertaker versus Ric Flair. Now, we both have... I have a weird opinion on this one, so you can go ahead first.
Yeah, I thought, first of all, the video package showed that this was a very compelling feud at this point. Taker had, started becoming Big Evil, and he was heel biker Taker.
Which we actually don't hate the whole American Badass biker
I don't hate it, and honestly,
yeah.
I thought he was a very good heel at this point in time. Flair, at the same time, was co-owner of the WWE. He was having the whole thing with Vince McMahon. And overall, I thought this was one of the best matches of the night. Probably second best match of the night, and this is not a match that is talked about a lot when you talk about Taker's WrestleMania matches, but I do feel that it's somewhere in the top 10 at least.
See, I agree with you to an extent. Now, my favorite part was Arn Anderson coming in and pulling off this amazing spine buster, best spine buster.
Vintage Arn.
Yeah, I love Arn. But I like this match, don't get me wrong. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a good match, but I feel like there should have been just a little more. I don't know. It didn't exceed it's not like I had high expectation because Ric Flair is old at this point, but it just felt like Flair, I don't know, I still kind of see him as that young, immortal Flair, always going to pull off some amazing matches. So I don't know. I liked it, but I don't know. I feel like there was something missing.
I disagree. Honestly, I really enjoyed it, and I don't think they could have really done more. Another thing with Flair is such a good bleeder.
Oh
it
my
might
God.
be the bleached blonde hair, but just the way he bleeds, it just makes it look so brutal.
And also the whole old man thing, bring it here, but stop. They
were definitely. They also acknowledged the streak at this point too, and Taker obviously ended up going over. But overall, I thought this was a very good match. Definitely one of the better matches in the night. So next, moving on to Booker T versus Edge. And this was a feud over a shampoo commercial or something like that.
That was probably one of the worst feuds I've ever heard
honestly,
of in my life.
Two, fantastic wrestlers in Booker T and Edge, and they're gonna feud over something stupid like this.
You could put them together with something else. Okay.
I thought overall there was some good false finishes. They were kicking out of each other's finisher. I know Edge kicked out of the axe kick and Booker T kicked out of a spear. But at the end of the day, I still felt it was kind of flat at the end.
They also, I felt botched a few spots. I don't know. There were just some things that didn't look exactly right. Something that I noticed that Teddy Long was actually the ref for this match, which, hey, go Teddy. That was fun. But also, I enjoyed the sequence at the end. I think it was that was a good sequence to kind of end the whole match off. But there were some inconsistencies throughout this match.
But yes, moving on now to Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Scott Hall. Now, what do you think of this match, and what do you think of Stone Cold having this role in the card?
See, I don't know how I feel about this. This was a kind of a weird transitional area between the Ruthless Aggression and the Attitude Era. So some weird Scott Hall, that's kind of random, and Kevin Nash, it kind of felt weird because it kind of seemed like a handicap match, even though Stone Cold won. I really don't know what I think about this match.
Honestly, I know we're going to talk about Hogan Rock in a second, but it really should have been Hogan Austin. It was a missed opportunity for them not to do that. I mean, come on, the two biggest stars, right. You could argue ever, if we're not counting Ric Flair. But yeah, it should have been them two. It only makes sense. And Scott Hall just wasn't in good shape at this point.
I know, yeah. This is the time where he started with his, personal demons, and I didn't really seeing him.
Well, no, he started even back in his late days in WCW. But I don't know who thought it was a good idea to put Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of your biggest stars, against an out-of-shape Scott Hall. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. But overall, I thought this was not actually a bad match. I actually enjoyed this match. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it was a good match, but I just don't know, the whole thing. But also, we were talking about this, how, how everyone hates Roman Reigns and that whole thing, but everyone also hated Cena. It's also this like generation, because seeing Stone Cold, he doesn't lose either. Like, he rarely lays down for anybody. This was practically a handicap match, and he still was able to be strong and pull everything off. So he just, I'm just thinking it's the generation talking.
Yeah, for sure. But overall, I thought this was a good match. Maybe not a WrestleMania worthy match, but I still think it was a good match. So next, moving on to the Four Corners tag team match, which included Billy and Chuck, who were the tag team champions at the time, Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley, Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy, and finally the APA. This was a time where there was just a stacked tag division.
Right. But also, like, I don't really know much about Billy and Chuck. The only thing I know is, like, that whole wedding thing. Like, I don't really get their, like, deal. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they were good or not. I don't want to, like, say something like, oh, they don't deserve the tag, because I don't know them.
I think it's maybe like a bootleg version of, like, the Golden Lovers.
Right.
You could probably say. Two guys who were, like, are really into each other. But yeah, overall, I thought this was a pretty decent match. Again, a stacked tag division here.
But also, like, the structure of the match is kind of weird. Like, only two people are in the ring, and you could tag anybody.
Those matches are
like,
always
yeah.
confusing. But yeah, this was, thinking about it, like, we had the Clash of Champions,
right.
Four Corners
but
match.
It worked. It
worked, yeah. They had, like, four guys in the ring, and it just, that was entertaining. Here, it didn't work as much, and after having WrestleMania 16's triple threat ladder match and WrestleMania 17's TLC 2, this really didn't live up to those matches, at least.
But also, at least, the Dudleys, felt like looked really strong, because they did eliminate most of the tag teams. But in the end, Billy and Chuck actually steal their victory. And what did you think about that ending?
I mean, I do remember them winning when I did watch it a few years ago. But they were just, I guess, trying to move on from the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys, and move on to a different, tag team era. And I think Billy and Chuck were leading that era. And I do think they were actually a pretty decent tag team. But finally, moving on to, not finally, it honestly should have been finally, but...
Right. I don't get why this didn't main event. This just seems like a main event kind of match.
Yeah, Hogan versus The Rock, past versus future, even though The Rock was out of here by the very next year. But honestly, this match was fantastic, and this was, it exceeded my expectations, and at the time that I watched it, and, Hogan's entrance, right from the get-go, they were cheering him.
Oh my, yeah, it's not a heel, he shouldn't be a heel. Yeah. But also, like, what a dream match, one. Like, that's so cool. And also, like, they just pulled off some great stuff, like the emotion that they played. And a lot of people give Hogan crap for not having good matches and just leg drop after leg drop. No, but he did a good match, and he also laid down for The Rock, which... Yeah,
and people were legit marking out. Like, when Hulk started, like, hulking up and stuff like that, people went back to their childhoods, and people just started going wild in the crowd. And it just shows you that you can criticize Hulk Hogan all you want. I know he said some really questionable things. Mm-hmm. You can criticize him all you want about his work and about his ego, but not many people can evoke that emotion from the crowd like the Hulkster can. And that's why he has to go down as one of the greatest of all time.
Of course.
No matter what you think.
But also, like, the selling throughout... The Rock is an amazing seller. Also, Hulk Hogan just... I was, again, marking out at this moment, but also just, like, the end with the handshake, and it just... And again, like, the whole, back to classic Hogan, just... You can tell the whole crowd is down and behind Hogan.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought this was a great match, like I said. And Rock winning, obviously, is the only thing that really made sense here. And Hogan, I know he's probably had some better matches in terms of storytelling. Like, Hogan Andre, in terms of match quality, wasn't great, but just the story there. Right. Same with Hogan Warrior. But I think this, in terms of match quality, I would argue is Hogan's best ever match.
But for the first women's match, or the only women's match of the night, we have Jazz, the champion, going against Lita and Trish. And what did you think about this match? And what do you think about the ladies in the match?
I thought this wasn't a great match. Kind of
short,
felt
too.
Clunky. But it's so crazy to think how much Trish improved ever since she debuted. This was, I think, 2 years into her debut. She knew nothing about actually wrestling, and here she's already improved so much. I mean, I'm not saying she was freaking Ric Flair by the end of this, but she still has improved and went a long way.
But also, like, Lita, too, they all just... these two girls are the women's division, like, throughout the whole thing. When you think of the greatest women of all time, Trish and Lita are definitely on that list.
But next, moving on to the main event, Triple H versus Chris Jericho. I know this match shouldn't have main evented, but at the end of the day, it did. So what did you think of this match overall?
I actually thought it was a good match. There were some parts where I didn't love, and that's going to be a lot of matches. But, and again, Triple H is not one of my favorites, and I tend to give him a lot of crap. But I thought this was a pretty good match. I love Chris Jericho. He's one of my favorites of all time. But they played this weird thing where it was like Triple H was the underdog throughout the whole thing, which...
Well, because he was selling the leg throughout the whole match. He was hurt, and they were also talking about the whole like tour quad from the year before, which Jericho was involved in that as well. But yeah, like I said, this match shouldn't have main evented, but it's so weird to think about. This is the only WrestleMania main event for Jericho.
That's crazy.
And it shouldn't have been, honestly.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I thought this was actually a very good match. And probably after the Hogan Rock match and the Taker Flair match, this is probably the best match. But yeah, I thought, Triple H winning made sense.
But also,
and Stephanie played it also pretty... I thought she played her role excellently in this match as well.
The only thing that I didn't understand was the whole, Chris Jericho hitting Hunter with a chair shot and him kicking out right away. I feel like maybe he should have waited a little bit longer. I felt like there were just some inconsistencies where you're like, Triple H is going to win. Like, we know Triple H is going to win. But there was some things that were...
I mean, Triple H was so over at this point. Right. When he came back from his injury in early January, I mean...
Is this the leather jacket?
Yeah, people were going like crazy. It was like the jean jacket.
Right, yeah.
And he won the Rumble that year, so he definitely deserved to win the title. But it was, honestly, nothing's going to follow Hogan Rock. Right. So this match isn't talked about at all. But I do feel like it was a very good match. And overall, just looking at this WrestleMania, one classic and 2 very good matches. The rest, not notable really. Whatsoever.
Right.
Like, honestly, none of them are really rewatchable. Nothing's really, even, you could say good, but
right.
mostly decent. So overall, what do you think of WrestleMania 18? Where does it rank among the best WrestleManias?
So, personally, I think that WrestleMania 19 is our favorite. That's our favorite. And a lot of people say 17, and 17 is also really good. But WrestleMania 18, it's in this weird spot where it's in between those two. I thought it was a middle of the road WrestleMania. I don't think it was a bad WrestleMania. It's no WrestleMania 9, but it's no WrestleMania 19. I feel like 22 was better, 31 was better. It was middle of the road. Maybe, I wouldn't want to say lower in the list of WrestleManias because I haven't watched them all, but I just thought it was very average.
I'm glad we actually went back and watched this just because I forgot how good how good Rock Hogan was. So tell us what you guys thought of WrestleMania 18 in the comment section below.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Rosie Wrestling, and we'll see you guys in our next video. Bye!